Hello and welcome to edupediaworld.com. Democracy in the Contemporary World, the chapter which we are going to study today. Two Tales of Democracy. In this picture we are seeing the person who is wearing helmet is President Salvador Allende of Chile, a country in South America. And here the parts of his speech is written which he delivered on 11 September 1973. Let's know who was Salvador Allende. He was the president of Chile, and these parts of his speech which was given on the morning of 11 September 1973, the day his government was overthrown by the military. Allende was the founder leader of the Socialist Party of Chile and led the Popular Unity Coalition to victory in the presidential election in 1970. It means President Allende was the first president of Chile who was elected by the common people. Here we can see the map of South America and the map of Chile is visible. Now the reforms done by Allende. These included reform of the educational system, free milk for children, and redistribution of land to the landless farmers. He was opposed to foreign companies taking away natural resources like copper from the country. Means he was the person who used to help those children, he used to provide free milk to them. He did the reformation of the educational system. He distributed the land to those who used to plow that land, and that means the landless farmers. And he was not in the favor of those companies who were taking away the natural resources from Chile. Military coup of 1973. On the morning of 11 September 1973, the military took over the seaport. The defense minister was arrested by the military when he arrived at his office. The military commanders asked the president to resign. Allende refused to resign or leave the country. But realizing the danger to the country and to his life, he addressed the people on the radio, part of which we read in the beginning. In this picture, we can see the palace of President Allende and the bombarding of the palace. This happened on the morning of 11 September 1973. On that day, the then defense minister was arrested by the military and arrived at his office. And the commanders asked the President Allende to resign. He refused to do so. He refused to leave the country. But as he knew the danger to country and to his life, he addressed his country's people on the radio. Parts we read in the beginning of the chapter. Then the military surrounded the president's house and started bombing it. President Allende died in the military attack. A government elected by people was overthrown by the military through conspiracy and violence. What took place in Chile on 11 September 1973 was a military coup. The military surrounded the President Allende's house and started bombing. And in that attack, he was killed. And with his death, there came to an end to the government which was elected by the people with their choice, with their right of vote. And it was overthrown by military on 11 September 1973. In this picture we can see Augusto Pinochet, who he was. Actually, General Augusto Pinochet was an army general who led the military coup which the president was killed. The government of the United States of America, was unhappy with Allende's rule and is known to have supported and funded activities that led to the coup. Pinochet became the president of the country and ruled it for the next 17 years. From a government that was elected by the people, the power shifted to the military officers. They could do as they wished and no one could question them. Thus, a military dictatorship was established in Chile. Pinochet's government tortured and killed several of those who supported Allende and those who wanted democracy to be restored. He was the man who led that military coup, the General Augusto Pinochet, and he got the support from United States of America, financially and military support also. He became the president after the death of President Allende, and he continued ruling on Chile for the 17 years. And he was not the president elected by the people, and even the people was not in the favor of the government. These included General Alberto Bachelet of the Chilean Air Force and many other officers who refused to join the coup. General Bachelet's wife and daughter were put in prison and tortured. More than 3,000 people were killed by the military. Many more were reported missing. No one knows what happened to them. Those who did not support General Pinochet was tortured. They were put in prison, including General Alberto Bachelet, who was serving in Chilean Air Force, and many other officers like him who refused to support General Pinochet. Even their wives, their daughters were put in prison and tortured, and many more like them. Almost around 3,000 people were killed by the military. And many more were reported missing, and God knows what happened to them. In this picture we can see Michelle Bachelet, the president of Chile, addressing her supporters after her victory in the presidential election in January 2006. How the end to Pinochet dictatorship came. Here I would like to read the line from his speech, "I am not a dictator, it's just that I have a grumpy face." Pinochet's military dictatorship came to an end after he decided to hold a referendum in 1988. He felt confident. He was overconfident that in this referendum the people would say yes to his continuing in power. But the people of Chile had not forgotten their democratic traditions. Their vote was a decisive no to Pinochet. This led to Pinochet losing first his political and then his military powers. The hope Allende expressed in his last address was realized. Felony, cowardice, and treason were finally punished. Political freedom was restored. The overconfidence which Pinochet has that his military dictatorship will continue, so he decided to hold a referendum in 1988, and he was confident that he will be elected by the people again and they will allow him to continue his power. But the people of Chile, they used their right to vote and their right to say no, and they had not forgotten their democratic traditions. And their no led to Pinochet losing first to his political and then his military powers, and like this came to an end of the rule, the brutal rule of Pinochet. Restoration of democracy. Since then, Chile had held 4 presidential elections in which different political parties have participated. Slowly, the army's role in the country's government has been eliminated. The elected governments that came to power ordered inquiries into Pinochet's rule. These inquiries showed that his government was not only very brutal but also very corrupt. After the dismissal of General Pinochet's rule, there has been 4 presidential elections held in Chile, and many different political parties participated in that election, and like this the army's role was eliminated, and now the people elect their representative, their ruler. Michelle Bachelet, she is the reigning president of Chile and it's her second term. Who she is? A medical doctor and a moderate socialist. Michelle became the first woman to be a defense minister in Latin America. In the presidential elections, she defeated one of Chile's richest men. The democracy wins. She is current president of Chile since 11 March 2014. She previously served as president from 2006 to 2010, becoming the first woman in her country to do so. It means it's her second term to serve the country as the president. In the last photograph of her victory speech, she is saying to her supporters, "Because I was the victim of hatred, I have dedicated my life to reverse that hatred and turn it into understanding, tolerance, and, why not say it, into love." Thank you.